Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Microsoft Unboxed POD. I'm your host today, Kramer Anderson. I'm joined by.
David Allen, and as I was saying earlier, my friend, we forgot the Santa hats for today.
We did, but we will still be delivering some gifts for everybody in the form of the last bit of news of 2024 for Microsoft and the tech world in general. And we'll also be doing a bit of predictions. Some thank yous to everybody. This is, like we mentioned, our 41st episode. We are about a year and a month into this new adventure for David and myself. And we want to thank everybody who's come along for the ride. If you started from the very beginning or if you're just now joining us today, we want to thank you for finding space in your tech
Yes.
world for us, for the two of us. I cannot go without saying that we appreciate uh, any and every bit of attention we can get from everybody. With that being said, I'm going to run over some of the headlines. Like I said, it's going to be kind of a short one because we want you guys to just have a sprinkling of news before you go into your holiday break, winter break, for those of you who are in the US and whatever else anybody else is celebrating or doing
Bef-
overseas.
Before you spike the eggnog.
Exactly. Where you're still coherent and comprehending what we're saying. We'll be talking about Stardock bringing a Multiplicity 4-pack and some of the features. We're going to be talking about Microsoft's confusing warning to businesses about the Copilot button and whether or not it was even necessary to have this whole Copilot button rebranding effort to begin with. We'll also be talking about YouTube ads. Yeah, that's a thing. And they're adding multiplayer to some YouTube Playables. We'll also be talking about some of the biggest players in Call of Duty who are taking a break from the game due to what they consider functionality issues. We're going to cover whether or not that's Microsoft's fault and what they can do to address it. If this is going to be systemic of Microsoft stewardship of Activision's property, and what that can mean for gaming in general. There's a lot to bite on that story. We're also going to be talking about Microsoft is testing its personal library streaming on Xbox. We might have mentioned that last week that it was coming. I think it's here now, and I don't know if we have any firsthand knowledge on that, but we'll go over it. And like I said, we're going to be wrapping up this pod with some predictions, kind of get you in the mood for what to expect in 2025 and whether or not we can be deemed soothsayers of technology. I'm going to say probably not. That's my first prediction, and we'll see if I'm right. With that being said, you want to walk people through our first story.
Yep, let's talk about Stardock Multiplicity 4 now. This is one of the coolest Windows programs I've seen in a long time, and that's kind of why I wanted to make sure they got a spot here on the pod. When you first see the title Multiplicity 4, you think, what's David talking about here? Well, for us old folks that had things like PC Anywhere and stuff like that, where you could remote control your PC from anywhere, that's kind of what this is, except you can bring those PCs in on one central monitor. So, say you are a streamer, like you mentioned, you could be streaming on a second PC and be gaming on one, but you could pull that second PC in on your main stream and still have control via KVM through the software using one mouse and keyboard. Now, that's one cool feature that it has. The other cool feature that I discovered was something called seamless display. And I kind of think of our Apple fans for a little bit because Apple has always had this continuity thing to where you could use your iPad as a secondary screen for your Mac. Multiplicity works the same way, except you can use virtually any Windows PC as an extra screen. So, for example, I have a Robo Encala Snapdragon tablet to my left that is on a mount. I have the software installed there, and that is a third screen here for my streaming and production workstation. Now, this works very well if you have good Wi Fi. I have not noticed any type of latency that has been problematic. It is so far for me cheers to the folks at Stardock. It has been wonderful software. Now, there's one small catch to it. If you're in the Object Desktop program, you have paid for your subscription for the part of that. To get the seamless display, you have to have Multiplicity Pro. So you will pay an additional $49.99 to get the seamless display portion. But I gotta say, this is something that I think Windows has been missing. You can do it in the Samsung ecosystem for those that have the Samsung laptops and the Samsung tablets. But to be able to do it virtually with any Windows device, I have tried it on Snapdragon devices. I have tried it on an Intel device. I've tried it on an AMD device. So far, they have all worked very well. So, good software, relatively inexpensive, feature packed. Go out there and check it out.
Yeah, that is good to know. I mean, Stardock's been doing really good stuff. And for those of you who are worried about adding on to your Windows OS and taking a performance hit, most of, and I can't speak for all of them because I haven't tried all of them, but most of them don't tax the CPU very much when applying these things. So if you want to customize your start menu, you want to customize, I mean, this is basically a more polished UI version of Power Tools for those who are aware of that. If you are a Power Tools user, these features are right up your alley as well. And for those of you who are experimenting, who want to, you do the, I don't know, what do you call it? Microsoft Launcher for your Android device. This is kind of the same thing for your desktop. So if you are interested in that, I would suggest you guys go check that out. I don't know if they have any sales specifically for the holidays, but they tend to do sales. So go check out the website, see what features might be usable for you going into 2025. If you happen to get a PC over the break. Our next story. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, what you got for us?
Yeah, Microsoft and its confusing. Stop! Wait! Don't do that! Story is basically they are telling businesses to uninstall the Copilot button or remap it at the very least. You might be wondering why, but let me cover that real quick. Microsoft has advised businesses to uninstall the Copilot app and remap the Copilot key on Windows 11 PCs. The Copilot app, which was initially designed to work with both consumer and commercial accounts, no longer supports Microsoft Entra ID accounts. Instead, it is now only available to consumer users with a Microsoft account. This change aims to enhance data security, privacy, and compliance for enterprise users. Microsoft recommends that organizations remap the Copilot key to open the Microsoft 365 app, which can authenticate with Entra ID and provides access to Copilot capabilities. Additionally, Microsoft businesses are advised to use App Locker to prevent employees from reinstalling the Copilot app. It's a mess. And furthermore, we also had a separate story about Microsoft rebranding the Microsoft 365 app to Microsoft 365 Copilot. So you are getting rid of the button or remapping the button to go to the Microsoft 365 app, which is now Microsoft 365 Copilot. So the button is now going back to Copilot functionality for the most part, because Microsoft put Copilot throughout all my Microsoft 365 apps and services. I hope you're as confused as I am if you've heard this or you're listening.
Well, I hope I'm not interrupting you here, but
no, I'm still trying to figure out what I just said.
Well, that's exactly how I was going to interject. I was going to say, well, what did you say here? Because it's confusing, and you have to look at this from a business standpoint. If it's confusing for us, the employees on the end of this have really got to be confused, because most of those aren't tech knowledgeable. They want to just push the button and get what their employer wants them to have, and they just want it to work. And is it part of a bigger Copilot problem? That's, and I'm not going to go too deep into that, but have we hit a point with Copilot here where integration, security, who gets what is becoming a corporate problem? Because you mentioned Intra ID there, you mentioned Microsoft 365. We've got everybody logging into this. Well, you got to, do this key combination over here, pull this lock, insert this key, to get where you want to go. When you start making things too difficult for businesses, they don't take time to figure it out.
Well, I'm going to see if I can try and clear this up as best as I can.
Okay, what did I miss?
No, you didn't miss anything. Your question is still very valid, and we'll see if I can circle back around to it. But what Microsoft is saying, and I think from a bird's eye view, they're saying that this is about security. Quote, the Copilot experience on Windows is changing to enhance data, security, privacy, compliance, and simplify the user experience. For users signed in with the Microsoft Intra work or school account, Microsoft's Copilot will offer enterprise data protection at no additional cost and redirect users to a new simplified interface designed for work and education. It looks like the problem Microsoft is having is that it is trying to offer Copilot to you and I and to the businesses and partners we work with, but with different capabilities. Apparently, our data doesn't need to be as secure as our partners' data.
Of course.
But the user experience should be very similar, so that when we have the prosumer, the person who uses these things in both their work life and their private life, aren't having to relearn or have muscle memory readjustments to these kind of things. So again, they're presenting presumably a very similar UI for businesses and education, but they're saying your data, because we're going to be legally bound to this, has to be a certain level of security higher. So when you push the button on your computer, your consumer computer, because all of the buttons were mapped with the consumer in mind first, we're going to remap. Unfortunately, the IT department has to remap it manually. We're not doing it on our end, on our Windows side. We're telling your IT guy, remap it to the more secure version of Copilot. Meanwhile, all of the PCs we sold were all geared to go to the consumer version, not the commercial version. I think that's where I'm at. So,
all right. Well, I have what feels like a very obvious question here. It may not be. All right, take us for example. I have a personal Microsoft account on my machine. I have our business Microsoft account on my machine. Now, when I sign into Teams, for example, I pick which account I want. When I use my OneDrive, for example, I pick which account I want. Am I putting it in our corporate or am I putting it in my personal? Why can't Microsoft detect, okay, this person is logged into OneDrive corporate? There should be some mechanism there that when this person hits the Copilot button, what are they already signed into to say, hey, a little pop-up, which Copilot do you want? Do you want one from XYZ Enterprises or do you want personal Copilot? And if they choose XYZ Enterprises, then they get the Copilot security profile and access levels that their IT team has set up for them. If they choose personal, they get the personal Copilot. To me, that seems like it would be a little easier to.
It definitely is. I think what they're, and again, this is me being way too gracious for Microsoft. I'm in your camp. I'm saying, Microsoft, get your S together, because this is ridiculous. And whether or not we even needed the button to begin with, if it's going to cause us many issues. What they're trying to say is that, again, we issued these PCs back in June. Your company bought them in July, handed them out to everybody. At the time, there was really only one-ish kind of Copilot. Now that we've broken it off and made a more secure one, we can't go back into the system and we can't change user behavior to now go, all right, when I'm on my computer and as soon as I start my computer, I click the Copilot button. It's gonna, maybe bring up Copilot, and either it's gonna ask me for my ID, or it's gonna take the account that's already listed on the computer and I'm just gonna start typing away, which could then put the company at risk, because I, as the user, have just started working. I'm thinking, hey, my computer is as secure as my IT guy gave it to me. I'm just start typing. Now, what they're saying is, all right, well, guys, that's how it's built now. If you need it to be more secure, we advise you, IT guys, go in when they're, away, off hours, whatever, and remap that button so that when the person comes in the next morning, they push a button, it's already logged into their work account. They can't get out of it. They can't go around it. They can't even use it for personal stuff like, oh, I want to figure out how to make monkey bread for Christmas. And, it's that stuff they could probably still do it, but it won't be on their personal account. It'll be on their work account. So they can't take it home with them and stuff like that. Again, being super gracious. Either way, we've spent about 10 minutes on this topic because it's Microsoft being confusing about the product, and to a much broader discussion, I feel like Copilot is being a little bit rudderless right now, because it isn't saying like, here are new features to help you work. It's here's another way we've sliced the pie to try and squeeze out some semblance of a narrative for this thing, like why you still need it, why are you still using it, how we can make it more accessible, kind of situation. So I want to move on from this because it is melting my mind.
It
All
is
we need,
mine too.
for those of you who are still listening, just know that if you're at a business, ask your IT guy whether or not your Copilot button's been remapped, whether or not you need to log in every time you use Copilot or restart your computer to be more secure, because I think Microsoft hasn't really quite figured it out yet. Our next topic is about YouTube ads. You can go on about that one.
Well, this is for YouTube adding multiplayer to the
Oh,
YouTube Playables. For
so
those
not
folks,
ads. Great.
yeah, for those folks that are interested in YouTube Playables, we seem to be in this kick to where everybody thinks we need web games. Netflix has tried it, Amazon's tried it. Now YouTube is going to throw their kick into it. And if you notice, when you load up YouTube and you scroll through your feed, about halfway through the page, you'll get this line of neat little games. I have tried some of the games, and I admit, if you're got 5 minutes and just want to have a little fun, blow off some steam, you're sitting in a doctor's office, that comes to mind, you're waiting on a meeting, they're fun little games. So what we have decided to do here is, YouTube says, let's try to make some of these multiplayer. Right now we have two that are multiplayer. We have Ludo Club and Magic Tiles 3. They will be multiplayer on your PC and on your phone. And there will be leaderboards. I have seen some of those leaderboards myself and just tinkering with some of these. There will be competitive leaderboards there. Kind of reminds me of what we did back with Angry Birds, when this whole multiplayer thing, leaderboard concept become a thing many years ago. I don't know. Microsoft, YouTube has tried multiplayer gaming before, and a little service called Stadia that we all, dumped on. I'm not sure where YouTube is headed with YouTube Playables. I mean, we're not seeing big licensing agreements there to where they're bringing in, top tier games. And I don't want to say that these games are our dinky games by no means. Some of them are fun, but they're just that. They're sit down, 5 minutes, laugh, put it down. I kind of like them without multiplayer, to tell you the truth. It's kind of a nice break from logging in, signing in, watching a leaderboard, caring about what somebody else is doing. So I'm going to put a question out there. Who is playing these games? No offense to YouTube. I just want to know who is playing these games.
If I had to go venture on a guess, kids. I think this is a long tier strategy, longer than Stadia was, because Stadia was for a very niche audience and it had to hit the ground running. Like, you and I have been steeped in gaming since we were kids, and they're aiming for us as an audience. So they had to have, all the foundational stuff put in place, and they really didn't at the time. They didn't have the deals. They didn't have the technology was there. The deals weren't there, and neither were the games for the audience they were going for. I think this is for the kids who are given iPads to watch stuff and be entertained. When they get tired of watching things, they can go onto a game because it's right there on that device. And I've seen it with my own girls. Like they like their YouTube, and then they go off to a different app store to play games. But imagine if a game comes up, like a very casual game, nothing big, and they start playing it. Kids will then know they can go to YouTube to play games in addition to watching videos, and this becomes a pattern of behavior. And they move away from the console, they move away from the Switch, they move away from those things because they have an iPad, they have an Amazon Fire tablet, they have whatever means, they have a TV, and they know that they can do gaming there. And it's enough gaming for them. It's it's not the first person shooters, it's not the AAA platformers or any RPGs or anything like that, but it's something. And I think that's what this play is for.
And if anything, it's a little bit of a safety mechanism because it keeps them on the same platform without wandering to an app store, having to deal with ads, or possibly attempting to purchase something, without parents' permission. I know you mentioned your little one. My little niece is into the farm building type games, and where you build your farm and you build your community, because she has grown up on a farm. So that's what she identifies with. And I have noticed as long as she's inside that game, she does very well. And she understands the difference between Farmville and going to her YouTube, for kids' YouTube. But sometimes there's a disconnect in there. Like if she sees an ad that is directed toward her in a game, she'll tap that ad. Of course, she doesn't know that after you tap that ad, they want you to go to the App Store, or they automatically load the App Store to try to get you to download, the title, and she'll pick it up and bring it to an adult. Go, what do I do here? And then we have to evaluate: is this game appropriate? Or send her back, somewhere else. So probably I'll see. I haven't let my niece try YouTube Playables yet. I may let her sit down over Christmas and see if she shows any
Oh,
interest.
don't worry. Kids, they find this stuff organically. You're sitting there going, how did you even get here? It's always surprising. Going from kids to adults, it seems like gaming is always full of issues. We got some of the biggest players in Call of Duty who are, and we say biggest, there's a couple, who are going to be stepping away from streaming the game itself, which could be a bad sign for Microsoft. We're going to give you kind of a little insight into why this might be a thing. We know that Black Ops 6 has been actually relatively well received from the gaming crowd, but there are issues kind of cropping up, and two of the biggest issues that are kind of driving some of the streamers away have to deal with anti-cheat and stability, as far as getting into games and kind of having an enjoyable experience. I believe, and again, I'm not huge into these streamers, but Nadeshot is, if I'm pronouncing it right, Nadeshot, is one of the most well-known names in Call of Duty. He's a multiple time champion at the highest levels. He's owner of about 100 Thieves organization. Also has a Call of Duty League franchise, and is a content creator. So this is free marketing for Microsoft and Activision at the time when he starts to stream about the game. He has a clip, I believe, you can find online, where he outlines why he, while Call of Duty seems to be his bread and butter, why he's stepping back from the game. And he's basically, like I said, he's saying that he's doing it because he's not enjoying it. He's not enjoying the game. He's not enjoying the way its functionality is. Another streamer, I believe, is stepping away, and this, his beef has to be with the anti-cheat. I think that's been one of the biggest ones. Team Ricochet, which is the makers of the anti-cheat, said they admitted missing the mark on this. We'll see if they can get it fixed. But I think you even mentioned that you're having issues with hovering. We'll say euphemistically with people in the
Yes,
game.
there are some issues with the anti-cheat. That is what I have experienced. Now, as far as the networking issues, I'll admit I'm on a high quality fiber connection here. Maybe that is keeping me away from some of the latency issues, or maybe that's masking them a little bit for me. But the anti cheat definitely needs work. I have experienced things to where you're walking along in a map and the enemy hovers over you and shoots you in the head, and you're like, where did he come from? And then you respawn and look up and he's looking at you like, yes, waiting for this pop, you're done. So doesn't happen every game, but as avid gamers know, once you start your experience for that day, once you get in that flow and you're having a good time, and you've got your beverage next to you, and time is passing by, when you kind of hit that lobby where that happens, it kind of kills the whole experience. I mean, it really does. It kind
Well,
of just knocks down the whole thing.
and we'll realistically looking at this game was made uh, before Microsoft purchased Activision, but they released it, they published it, they marketed it. It is now their issue. And for a cloud company, software company, gaming studio owner, this is something they're going to need to address quickly. Otherwise, this adds to a larger narrative of what is Microsoft doing. Indiana Jones was a great game, great first person, probably one of the first person or first party games that they've produced, or at least through an acquisition that has been really well for them. But their strategy as far as releasing games, it seems like they're going to be doing quantity over quality to a certain degree. And people are kind of confused as to what Microsoft is going to be known for if they're going to de-emphasize the console. And you don't want to be known if people are trying to figure out what you're known for, you don't want them to start establishing a lot of negativity and filling that void before you get a chance to say what you're known for. And what they're going to start saying is like, hey, they're known for, again, quantity over quality, and that they can't shepherd the games that they are publishing or producing. They are in it just for the money. They're not in it for the quality of the game or the quality of experiences that the gamers are having. So I would suggest that they, like I said, address this as quickly as possible, if they can, because again, it seems almost inexcusable for them to have been in gaming for what is going on, almost 30 years, and being one of the biggest cloud providers, one of the biggest software companies out there with the most amount of money, to have these kind of issues. This isn't like, even before Activision was a big company, now you're part of a bigger company. Get it
This is
fixed.
what this is what keeps Sony in the lead. This is, just one of those things. Not necessarily that the issue doesn't happen on the Sony PlayStation version of the game. Like you said, people get this bad mojo against how Microsoft is handling the situation. Well, Sony right now, as far as we know, doesn't have any bad mojo about an XYZ
But
situation. So,
even if they did, this is Microsoft's game now, so
mhm.
it still transcends that. So Sony they could have all their servers offline. It is Black Ops is a Microsoft game, just like it used to be an Activision game. You don't go blaming Sony for it; you go blaming Activision for it, and now that is being transferred to Microsoft. So Sony's in a win-win situation.
Yeah,
If
what
they if they screw it up, they blame Microsoft because now Microsoft is the owner.
exactly, and I think we're right here just days before Christmas, and you've got parents out there that are buying these consoles to put under the Christmas tree, and you think about it for a minute. The parents as well. I've heard this story about Microsoft and how they're handling games, and that's all the parent knows is they heard a story. Maybe they watched our podcast. That's all they know is they heard a story. So guess what that parent does? They put down the box that says Xbox and they go pick up the white box that says PlayStation on it just because they heard a story and Microsoft and Xbox was mentioned. So that's a sale that's missed. You didn't sell those, marked up accessories. You didn't sell those headsets. Sony wins again. So these are things that, we as gamers, we understand it as adult gamers, but think of the parents that just hear things or they scan social media or they hear from a coworker, well, my son or my daughter, had this, and they go buy the PlayStation. Come on, Microsoft, fix it.
Think about the parents. What about the parents? We're gonna our last one of our last stories is going to be about Microsoft testing personal libraries for the Xbox. You want to dive into that one?
Yep, I'm gonna kind of skim over this one because we've covered this one twice, but I just want to let people know this is at first I had to think my way through it. Microsoft had said they were going to allow, it's a short list for now. I believe when we covered it the first time, the list was about 50 games. There is the list of games that are available on Game Pass for streaming that Microsoft offers. Now, if you own a title, meaning you have purchased it before, and it is on the available to be streamed list, you can stream your personal titles. Now, what's neat about this, when I got to thinking about it, storage is limited on all consoles these days because we're pushing 4K and above, high frame rates, fast storage. That storage is expensive. So I got to thinking, why would I want this feature on my Xbox? I could see it on my handheld, I could see it on my PC, but take a title that you play once in a while. I don't necessarily have one off the top of my head that I personally play once in a while, but I want to play, let's pick one, Cyberpunk. I don't want to wait to download 80 gigs of Cyberpunk just to play it for half an hour. It defeats the purpose. The game doesn't get played. But I own it. Microsoft says I can stream it. What am I going to do? I'm going to go over there and pick it in my library. I'm going to pick stream. I'm going to spend my 30 minutes playing that game, and I'm going to get my 30 minutes because when you hit stream, there it is. I'm going to get my 30 minutes, and I'm going to put it away. So I'm hoping that Microsoft can work with the publishers, work with the developers, work with the licenses, and get more of our titles that we have purchased in the past or current and get those in the streaming library, because this goes back to play anywhere. Phil Spencer coined that phrase, and everything goes right back to it. Play anywhere. Come on, Microsoft, I need two things from you in this podcast. I need you to fix Call of Duty, and I need you to add some titles to the streaming library, please, that I already own. Come on. You can do it. I won't say anything until 2025. I realize you've got it. The eggnog's to your right. I get it. But we've got some stuff to work on.
Yeah, this is kind of like when they did the backward compatibility foundation.
Yeah.
This adds to that, and I think to our point of a thin client or your play anywhere, this is going to ideally eliminate the necessity for large SSDs for their devices. Maybe they can save some money there. Maybe that's where they cut into the way the PlayStation makes its money. Again, you get a console that is basically a glorified streaming stick in the future, costs less to produce, less that needs to go into it, because again, you're just streaming everything from the cloud. I think that's kind of the business aspect of this. Now, I don't know how they're going to work out the publishing as far as how much money is going to get made from having to have teams kind of maintain these online presences for games that were probably made for, just the hard sell copy disk itself for one-time use. Maybe their servers have gone offline since the game has been produced, maybe 10, 12 years ago or whatever. I don't know how that's going to start working out, but I think at least for the foreseeable future, they're probably going to do games that have been made in the last 5 to 7 years as they add more to the library. But I think when we go far enough into the future, you're going to hop onto a TV at your hotel, put in your account, and pull up your entire library and say, I want to play this game from 20 years ago because that's in the mood. That's the mood I'm in. And you'll have that play anywhere feeling experience. We're going to get into our last section, which is our 2025 predictions. Where we see Microsoft kind of going next year. I have a couple that I pulled up as far as kind of positive and negatives, I think, for both. I'm going to start with the positives, and you can chime in on any of these that you agree with or disagree with, or you have your own. AI cloud growth, they're going to continue to push ahead with that, which means that they're going to have strong financial performances in each quarter, despite what I think is going to be an AI drag. I think AI and hardware are going to be two of the places where they are going to have trouble explaining some of the headwinds that they're going to get into. They're going to have, I'm also predicting as the third one, game expansions. I think they're going to be getting in, they're going to start showcasing some of these other games that they've bought, these studios that they bought are now starting to produce. We've waited a while. I don't think they're going to be quiet on that front. I think we're going to see some more moves, hopefully, towards this mobile gaming thing that they've been trying to inch towards. We're going to be hearing about the sustainability initiatives. I don't know how well they're going to be, especially when they keep adding AI layers on top of this, and those just keep seeming to suck all of the resources out of their efforts to make themselves sustainable. Negative wise, I think they're going to have high AI spending as they continue to try and find a reason for people to use this. I think one of the other big issues they're going to have is regulatory issues. I don't know if they went to Mar-a-Lago, if Satya Nadella sat down with Trump, but if he didn't, expect to see a lot more FTC issues. They already have a couple that are on the books currently. All those investigations just need to play out. And if they do, Microsoft could be in a bit of issue, especially when it comes to Azure. And that, that's their moneymaker. So how they license that and make money from that could be in danger a little bit. I don't think it's going to be as big as like the Windows controversy from the early 2000s, but you could see them having to capitulate on a lot of things that, again, each penny that they make from it adds up to millions and billions. And if they have to start shifting the way that they make those pennies, that could be an issue. There's also economic uncertainty. I think we're all going to be seeing some of that in 2025 as far as where we go with this, at least the U.S. economy. I think in a broader issue, there's still inflation internationally, and that could have some issues with the way that they are building data centers and things, slow some of that data center growth that they wanted to down. And lastly is competitive. And this is my biggest one. How do they make Copilot stay competitive? Because again, they were competitive with Cortana for a minute. They were semi-competitive with Windows Phone for a second. They maintain competition with Windows, but that keeps getting chipped away. They are not competitive with browsers. They're not competitive with search. So if they lose AI, and AI is supposed to be, the next stepping stone beyond mobile phones, that's two big losses in the next 20 years, which will, over the past 20 years, that will lead in the next 10 years. So how do they keep AI competitive? And I feel like right now they're kind of starting to fall behind Google. And they're starting to fall. ChatGPT is also kind of being a little bit stagnant as well, but they've been preoccupied with going from nonprofit to making money first before they can even start adding new features and stuff. So, and Apple, we'll see what Apple does with their amalgamation of AI technology and resources. And if they come out of the gate stronger, which right now it doesn't seem like they will, but they could, whereas Microsoft, who was the first and loudest, and they tend to always be like that, fall back to the second or third spot.
I think they're going to take I don't want to sound like it's detrimental, but I think they're going to take a fall in 2025 because the adoption of AI is feels like to me it's shifting. It's more your phone representative, your online chat, your high level business task. That's my summarizing area for it. Your high level business task of, your company has paid for AI agent, your company has paid for this agent to do this, that is, either substituting an employee or making that employee's life, easier. I see Microsoft going there, but I see a trend where we were just talking about the Copilot key being on consumer machines. I still think the Copilot key will be there in 2025. Absolutely. It will be there in a hardware sense. But I still, and I've talked about it several times this year, I don't see consumers yet jumping on that AI bandwagon. I just don't see it. And they're still going to Google. They're still doing the Google searches. Yes, they're reading the little snippet that is put up there with AI, but guess whose snippet that is? That's Google's snippet. That's not the Microsoft snippet. So the losses with Bing that you mentioned, the losses with not being the browsing leader, it all has kind of compounded. And Microsoft, I think, has an AI problem. I think the industry in general has an AI problem. There is no interoperability between anybody's model. You know, everybody's fighting for that same piece of pie. Use our model does this, our model does this, and our model does this. And I've mentioned it a few podcasts ago. There's just not a place where consumers are going to pay, or even businesses are going to pay for 4 or 5 different models. I don't know the solution there, but that's something we've got to get to. And as far as gaming, 2025 is going to be the year of, was our $60 billion investment worth it? They've taken this first year to lay the groundwork, start to see the payoff in their first Call of Duty launch. They've got some numbers to go with. They've got these streaming add ons that we just discussed. Do they make them pay off in 2025? Do they produce a gaming handheld, a gaming partnership, to enter that space? Because right now, Microsoft, the gaming division, they're not there. The Windows division is producing Windows on these handhelds. But the gaming division, other than the Xbox app, is not there yet. So, how does Microsoft respond to that? Do they want to get in that division? Phil Spencer says so. He has talked about, you know, I've got handhelds I have tested. We are testing. There have been thoughts that Microsoft is going to enter the handheld business. I think if they're going to, this is the year that they do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot that's open. I think the biggest takeaways for 2025 are to keep a lookout on Azure regulations.
Yes.
Keep a lookout for stumbles in the gaming messaging and organization of the company. Because again, now they'll have Activision a full year under their belt. What do they do with that? And the other studios, we keep focusing on Activision, but there's Bethesda, there's all their, there's the Black something studio. Like, they have tons of them. They need to produce games. At the end of the day, producing games is what wins you, the trust and the goodwill from gamers. And so we'll keep an eye on, what they announce, how these, monthly or bi-monthly gaming announcements go, and trailers and stuff like that. And then lastly, and we've been talking about AI for 2 years. We're going to probably be talking about a third year, but the overall sentiment of AI, because right now it's kind of a laughingstock. People associate AI with six fingers, weird artwork. They don't associate it much with text or prompts or any of that stuff that we may be using for businesses. They don't associate it for, at least in the broader conversation. Yes, here in the tech world, we understand that you can be using it for a ton of other great things, to reduce costs and things like that. But when you go to your regular news sources or your commentators on YouTube, stuff like that, everyone's joking about like, hey, you can tell it's AI because they got a third eye, or they have six fingers, or there were two mustaches on top of each other. That's the overall sentiment. And if we can't get past that, this will become the NFT boon all over again, where you can't get past it. Same thing with Siri. Siri became a laughing stock, and it's been almost 10 years now that we've been around with Siri, and people don't trust Siri. You can put Apple Intelligence all you want, people are gonna be like, that's still Siri. You put lipstick on a pig.
Now,
I'm not
now,
even gonna bother with that.
now, I'll spend 10 seconds here. In the latest Apple update, you may have seen it on your MacBook.
Mhm.
You can swap Siri for Chat GPT.
Oh no, yeah, you're definitely right. Like, but that's a problem. You don't trust Siri, because Siri still gives you ChatGPT. She's just the face of that. And if you have to go like, I want ChatGPT, you've already you've already reverted to the 10 years of Siri being a laughing stock. What people say, Siri, get out of here. I'm not talking to you. And it's hard to really overcome that. It's hard to be like, oh, 10 years ago I was laughing at Siri. Now it's gotten me to where I need it to be. It's going to be like, no, this other product, which is exactly like Siri but named something else, is where I wanted it to be. And I feel like that's what's going to happen with AI. We're going to laugh our way through what AI could have been and wait for something else to come along that uses these large language models in a much more sophisticated way, and be like, that's what I was waiting for.
I agree with that 100%.
With that being said, we want to again thank you guys so much for a wonderful year of
Yes.
your patience, your appreciation, your time, and anything else you guys have given us. We will continue to do what we do. We will report on tech. We have a lot to talk about as far as CES is coming along. We will have tons of reviews. We're going to probably do a site refresh and give you guys some new content. We're going to try and move towards a more weekly, shorter and informal kind of content to give you. Maybe on TikTok, you can go there on a Monday and get the rundown of what happened, versus listening to these long, elaborate but fun podcasts. So we can give it to you much shorter ways, because we know everyone has got ADHD these days. We're going to try and get to that. We're going to try and be more online when it comes to responding to you guys. If you're on Blue Sky, or if you're on Threads, or if you're on Facebook or any of those other platforms, we're just going to try and be more attentive. But again, it's a process, so give us some time. But we are building this thing. It's a two-man operation so far, and I think we're doing fairly well, if I had to pat myself on the back.
I would agree. I think we deserve that pat on the back. And I want to add to what you said. We've had opportunities this year to meet people, to speak to people, to do things, to do reviews, to cover products, and bring content to you guys in ways that are fun to us. And you guys have been gracious in feedback that I have received or I have read, or good and bad. If there's something you don't like, tell us. If there's something you want, tell us. If you want us to do TikTok twice a week just to give you some quick headlines, whatever you want, tell us. Because one thing we don't have is, a corporate body back here controlling a checkbook to tell us what to do. So if there's something you want us to try something different, I'm willing to do it, and I know you are. So this is one place where readers can kind of shape what we do. So get out your magic markers, tell us what you want, and give us an opportunity.
Yeah, but that being said, where can they find you to give us that opportunity?
Well, I'm over on Blue Sky a lot these days. Now, the bots have kind of kicked in a little bit over there. I have noticed a lot of, unnecessary bot traffic. But David PHA 1978 I follow the main tech feeds over there. I am also still, the account is active on Twitter/X, DavidPAJ1978. I mainly use that for browsing for people that have not come to Blue Sky yet. So catch me on either one of those.
Yeah, I'm at Happy Hulk. I think it's there. You go, right there on the screen. At Blue Sky. I For those of you who are just now joining Blue Sky, there are these lists that you could follow that help you follow tons of tech people like ourselves and block anybody that you were previously uncomfortable with on Twitter. So you can get a jump start. I think that's been the biggest thing for Blue Sky is it has a pretty big jump start for or learning curve, a shorter learning curve for a lot of people. I'm also on Threads. You can find us on Instagram. You can find shorts of these episodes on TikTok. You can go to YouTube, watch the full thing if you're just now listening as well. You can see these beautiful faces, mostly just the artwork that we use to accompany our stories. But again, we want to thank you. We want you guys to have a safe and happy rest of 2024. We will see you in 2025, bright and early in January. So again, stay tuned and thank you.
Thank you guys and happy holidays. Like you said, everybody be safe and enjoy your eggnog and enjoy your New Year's Eve toast, and we'll see you next year.